Do not talk to me or my Santa child ever again. That's how I'm starting this. Hi, so this is a much more low budget setup because I'm not in my flat. So you're going to have to make the most of the presumably worst audio quality and the really dodgy beard angle here. But yeah, that was Spyfall Part 2. I'm going to eat this, I'm not dropping it in my hands. Yeah, overall, a much more coherent episode. I mean, so to recap my Spyfall Part 1 review, I liked it, I thought it was okay. There was a lot lacking in the episode, my main criticisms being I still don't care much for like most of the companions, they found them extremely boring and that much kind of presence, and there wasn't really much in terms of plot. There were two parts, it didn't have to all happen in the first part, but the stakes really weren't established during the first half, so it made it really hard to care about kind of what was happening. But then obviously the plot hanger was the plot twist and the cliffhanger, which I guess I'm now going to refer to as a plot hanger, because that seems to make sense and actually isn't that unclear. It was actually quite impactful. Sacha Dhawan as the Master was very well, it was a good casting choice. I'm not that terribly familiar with him as an actor, but he definitely played the role very well. And I'm a huge fan of that casting, and this episode hasn't changed that whatsoever. I guess now that we've seen more of him, there's going to be more highs and lows to his performance, but he's definitely it definitely was the right choice, and I'm glad it's actually stuck and it wasn't a empty plot twist. But yeah, this episode was more consistent in terms of kind of the general plot of the episode. The pacing was right, so we learned more about the stakes at the time I meant to learn more about the stakes by. I need to control my hand gestures a bit more because I realised that gesturing for my face isn't helpful because now I'm actually covering my face, so that's not the best kind of strategy to go with here. This laptop I have, my laptop has the webcam at the bottom of the screen rather than the top, which most laptops have, so that's why it's really low angle. I guess it's better because when you have a proper desk and you're actually doing a voice conference with someone, your eye line is going to be matching the person more than... This isn't a review of my laptop. What am I talking about? Back to the episode. Yeah, so in terms of the enemies of this episode, I didn't quite catch the name. It was like Canavan or something, so that's what we're going to go with. Yeah, I felt the story was it was a decent average Doctor Who story, and that's really all you can ask for a 53-year-old, 56-year-old, 7-year-old series. You have highs and lows, and you have average episodes, and it was a traditional Doctor Who episode. Nice amount of kind of science fiction embedded in historical fact. It wasn't too bogged down in the time travel aspect and used it to kind of the appropriate amount. I kind of nerded a bit over Ava Lovelace's inclusion because I'm a computer scientist, so I appreciate her role in kind of technological development, so I think it was a good inclusion. Although, to be fair, the two historic figures that were used weren't terribly important to the plot. Ava Lovelace could have basically been any 19th century woman, other than the fact that she would happen to be the most prominent 19th century woman involved in the development of computer science, which computer science was part of the plot. Usually sort of subtle Black Mirror-esque messages against the advancement of technology and the purveyance of data in our lives, and social media and search engines collecting our data would usually bug me because but whatever. It's kind of my real attribute to that kind of claims, but I guess it is kind of somewhat topical, especially after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which I imagine was very much still in the forefront of most people's knowledge base when this episode was written or concepted. And I think actually so one of my criticisms in the last review was there was this really uncomfortable pairing with, you either had the Doctor and one companion, usually Graham, together, and then you had Ryan and... what's the other one called? This is how much I got. I forget about these characters. I've forgotten what the last... I'm struggling to keep track of all companions because historically in this series and the last series there haven't been... Yasmin? Is that the actress's name? Yeah, it's because Yaz, isn't it? So yeah, in the last episode, in the last review, my also apologies if there's any lag. The internet here seems to be quite terrible. But the warning signs are flashing at me here. But hopefully, my voice, if not my visuals, is coming through clearly. In the last kind of review, I commented that you usually had Doctor and Graham who were fighting together, and then you had Yaz and Ryan. And Ryan, as a character and as an actor, is completely and utterly dull and void of any kind of substance or presence. And then paired that over with Yasmin, who isn't as bad, but not good enough to carry him as a character, it made parts where you just had Yasmin and Ryan very, very dull and padding-wise, and it just didn't... I zoned out during this past episode. Here, we were split off with the Doctor and the historical characters and the three companions together, and the three companions together without the Doctor actually worked better as a trio pairing than splitting one off and then having the two together doing their own kind of mini adventure. I don't know if it's going to carry on, but if it does, it might just pass us through the next season, at least with these this combination of characters. The kind of stakes that the bad guys are set effectively. I mean, was actually explained ever why and what data why they were trying to use the human race as hard drives and what data they were trying to store. I'm not entirely convinced that they did explain that, but at least it was a motivation. I guess it's a reasonably good motivation, not too silly, and I guess we didn't need too much exposition about why they were doing that. So as a villain, as a one-shot villain, the kind of villains kind of worked in that sense, and once you understood the stakes, it worked, and it worked for the themes of the episode. And it kind of carried on, so that was fine. And yeah, so then we had that part episode was the caravans and Daniel Blake, whatever his name was, and the companions, and that was all fine. And done decently well, and there's adequate stakes. And pacing that was wise was very good. And then the other half of the episode, which was the Master and the Doctor chasing each other through time. I think the one part which I was like, this is a bit weird, was, I guess, when the Doctor was literally a foot away from the Master and he was killing people indiscriminately, and there was absolutely no attempt to kind of at least physically restrain him. I guess that's kind of the ways to pick a Doctor. We've switched between Doctors who are pacifists to the point of it being negligent, and then you have, like Pertwee's Doctor, who probably would have, physically tried to do something. But I guess actually, when you think about it more, you don't want to aggravate a crazy person with a firearm, because then if you lose control, there's going to be much more deaths. But it did seem very like there could have been a bit more to stop kind of the random killing that was happening there. But no, the Master's only really as good as the Doctor, as their interaction with the Doctor, such as the pairings of good heroes and villains, and I do think they kind of have they bounce off each other. And I do think it gives this incarnation of Doctor and Jodie Whittaker's portrayal of this incarnation of Doctor much more opportunities to use more kind of realms of dark emotion. I didn't express it very well, but I think a lot of people who are used to New Who and used to kind of the jovial parts of the Doctor with the dark side of the Doctor, which is even with even with the lesser of the darker Doctors, there's always been a balance. Like for the last 4 of the new series of Doctors, there's been a fair balance between the lighter episodes and the darker episodes, and you've seen like Excellence Doctor had a lot of light moments and dark moments in episodes. Davison's Doctor, Tennant's Doctor had a lot of light episodes and dark moments in episodes. Smithson did, and so did Capaldi's. And I think a lot of the last series, even when the stakes were at their highest, the Doctor never kind of had that particularly kind of dark and threatening aura. I think there's a lot of criticism that was in the last series. I don't necessarily agree with it, because Doctor's personality changes wildly throughout history, but I think that's what a lot of the people were they were used to and they didn't get from this Doctor. And I think the presence of the Master in this episode, and then what we found about Gallifrey, gave Whittaker moments to actually portray that side of her character, especially when they found out about Gallifrey and they were kind of comprehending kind of the scale of that. And I think if that's a mark of how this season will progress, I think it's a good sign for the general kind of acceptance of this Doctor and this kind of direction of Doctor Who, because I know there's a lot of criticism with the direction in the last series. So I think that's a good sign. I think the historical pieces were nicely paced. I think this episode was much better in terms of previous episode, while still not being particularly jarring. But I think the pacing was much better here. I think if that pacing was carried over for the previous episode, I would have enjoyed the previous episode more. But like I did enjoy this considerably more. I was much more engaged in this than I was with the series opener, which I think is good. I think in the last couple of years, we've had a two-parter opening. It's always been the first of the two-parter, which is set a standard high, and then the subsequent ones have been lesser. So there's a relatively small pool to choose from of opening two-parters. So yeah, I'm going to make a quick review because I'm aware my internet is quite terrible where I am at the moment, and the quality is going to be quite terrible. So I don't imagine most people will want to watch a long stream of this quality. At least I hope I'm coherent in terms of quality of audio, if nothing else. But yeah, I think that's basically my take from it. I hope we see more of Sacha Dhawan's master, but I hope they have the common sense to not overuse him. Because I think that's been a trend. I think it's been a trend with Missy's incarnation of the master, with Michelle Gomez's. I think they maybe underused that incarnation a bit too much, and it became a bit too much grating. You got a good thing here with Sacha Dhawan's portrayal. I want to see him again in this series, but let's not see too much of him. I think because concentrate more, I guess, on the arc we now have about Gallifrey and the Timeless Child, which was randomly alluded in the second episode of the last series and never brought up again. And it's almost comical how they flash back to that scene where it was name dropped in the second episode of the last series, where they mentioned Timeless Child, as if to remind you, hey guys, remember, this has been alluded to before. We kind of forgot about it, but we remembered when we were writing this episode and this series. But the thing about arcs is that they've always been better when they've been underlying and subtle rather than when they've been the forefront of plot in the last kind of New Who anyway. So I hope it's that kind of thing, and I hope we get this same kind of... I mean, it hit a tone with this season better than the last season, so as long as it keeps this tone, it should be fine. But that's my quick 12-minute take on this episode, because I don't want to stretch the credibility of the quality of this stream for too long. But yeah, thanks for watching. Apologies again for the quality. We should be back to normal, hopefully, depending on where I am geographically next week. And I'll see you guys next time, if I can remember how to...